What's up, you guys, and welcome back to the Open Your Own Door podcast. I'm your host, Paige Espey. Thank you so much for joining me today. So it is late January and it is 10 degrees here. It was 10 degrees. Well, it was 10 degrees when I woke up this morning. So I am just sitting here in my cozy little, the warmest sweater that I could find and my hot coffee. And I'm just ready to crank this episode out. I've got a sleeping baby in the other room. Again, that probably won't last very long. So today we are going to be talking about the 12 things that I like to do that help me get out of a funk. So I talked about this a lot on my Instagram this past summer, and I actually created an entire image on Canva that I shared via email. So if you join my email list, or at least if you joined it this summer, you automatically got this PDF or whatever in an email. And it's basically just the 12 things that I like to do to get myself out of a funk. So, and really my inspiration for this conversation started just with speaking with my own friends and talking to people in my life. Because I feel like so many times, I literally hear this phrase all the time. I'm just in a funk. I'm just in a funk. I'm uninspired. I'm just in a funk and I've got to figure out how to crawl my way out of it. And maybe I just hear that all the time because I am 34 years old and most of my friends are in the season of life of, being pregnant and having babies. And so, we've all got crazy hormones going on. And so I do want to say that if you are someone who has just had a baby, or you're pregnant, or you're, freshly postpartum, a lot of times these funky kind of feelings, they do have a lot to do with hormones and just your body trying to balance everything back out. And I also do want to say that if you're someone who has experienced, intense loss, intense grief, I don't really want to downplay those emotions and downplay those feelings and just throw a list of 12 things that you can try if if someone in your family has died. No, that's not what I'm saying, because I have been in a season of life where people in my family have passed away, and I'm not really here to say that these 12 things would help you during a season like that. So if you're someone who is experiencing some depression, true anxiety, true grief, this list, I do not want to downplay your emotions in any way. There is a time and a place to unpack your emotions around grief and your emotions around loss. And a lot of times that is best done with a licensed therapist. And I am not a licensed therapist, but I can give you the tools and the tips and tricks and things that I have tried whenever I have been in a funk. Okay, so let me tell you about a funky season that I went through about 2 years ago, probably 2 years ago this spring. So I was just going through a weird time with relationships. We live in a small town, and a lot of times relationships can be challenging and can be hard. I grew up in a small town, and when I was a senior in high school, I decided to move away because, when you live in a small town, it can be kind of suffocating sometimes. And sometimes you find yourself around people that don't necessarily believe what you believe, or they don't necessarily align with your values, and they don't necessarily align with, your vision for your future. But sometimes when you live in such a small area, you feel kind of stuck with certain people, and you feel it's hard. I'm just going to say it can be really hard. And so 2 years ago, I found myself in a really weird season with relationships, and some of it had to do with my family and some of it had to do with friendships. And I could just feel myself spiraling every single day. I would ruminate. I would be I would just get in a funk. I would get sad. I could feel paranoid about certain situations. And, I could feel it starting to affect my home life. My husband could pick up on, if there had been a day where I had just been in my thoughts, anxiety, and he would pick up on it and he would be like, girl, you need to chill. You need to chill. Okay. And so it got to a point where I knew I had to do something. I knew that I had to stop ruminating, and I had to stop, the thought loops needed to stop, and I didn't know how to make them stop. And again, I'm a big proponent for therapy, but this was something that I was like, I think that I can fix this and I can change this. And so I started walking. Okay. So we renovated our house that we live in right now. This house that I'm in right now, we renovated it about 2 years ago. And we have a lot of land out here. We live on 10 acres and our driveway is really long. And so during that time, I just started walking every single day. Lake was a baby and I would just put him in his little stroller. It was in the spring and we would just walk and I would listen to a podcast. I got really deep into like Mel Robbins during that time. And so that was probably the funkiest season that I've been through as of late. As of recently, was probably about 2 years ago. And I just knew that I had to figure out a way to get myself out of it because, as we all know, you are responsible for your actions. You are responsible for how you react to things. And I just knew that, if I stayed cooped up in my house and I allowed myself to ruminate and overthink things and overthink conversations and relationships, that I knew that I would just end up in a really dark place. So I started walking. And I want to say that walking totally changed my life. I mean, truly, I'm not trying to be dramatic in any type of way, but when I started walking and listening to podcasts every single day, so many things started clicking into place. And so this summer, I was having a conversation with a friend and she just said, I'm in a funk. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get out of it. I don't know how to claw my way out of it. So I decided to sit down and write down, truly think about and write down all the things that I like to do whenever I get in a funk. Now, we are in January right now. January is the funkiest month of the year. Let me just tell you. It's really hard not to slip into seasonal depression. And then here I am postpartum. So maybe that's what's fresh on my brain. But I try to do everything I can to eliminate the funkiness, okay? And to keep myself from going down rabbit holes and just getting in a place that can be really hard to crawl out of. So I'm going to list off those 12 things today. And I really honestly feel like each one of these like little tips or tricks or whatever, I feel like each one of these could be its own podcast episode because I'm such a proponent for each one, but we're going to try to get through all 12 of them while the baby is asleep. Okay, so the number one thing that I would encourage you to do if you are slipping into a funk or you feel like, sad, maybe a little depressed, maybe a little anxious, all the things, is you need alone time. Okay. Being lonely and alone time, those are two very different things. I believe that you can be someone who lives by yourself and you're by yourself like 90% of the time. And that can be totally different than experiencing intentional alone time. So for me, I am the type of person, I have to have alone time to function. Like truly, that's just my personality. I am a creative. I feel like creatives, a lot of times they recharge by retreating and by taking a break from people, taking a break from routines. And that is very much how I am. I need my alone time. It helps me with discernment. It helps me to lay out all the areas of my life and really focus on and ask myself hard questions like, is this working for me? Is this particular area of my life something that is lighting me up, or is this something that is draining me? And a lot of times it can be hard to get quiet and answer questions like that if you are never alone, okay? So it helps me with discernment. It helps me figure out what I really feel and what I really think about a certain situation. When I get alone and I turn off my phone, I turn off the TV, the kids are with someone. When I get my alone time, I can really actually think about certain situations and think about how I want to react to certain situations because, again, we are 100% in charge of how we react to things. We are not in charge of the things that happen to us in this life, but we are in charge of how we react to them. And I feel like the more alone time I have, the better of a person I am because I can focus on the type of person that I want to be. And like I said, it just helps me ground. It helps me feel grounded. It helps me feel more aligned. And so a lot of times people are like, well, I don't even know what to do with myself when I'm alone. I don't know. I've had so many people say I'm kind of afraid of being alone and I'm kind of afraid of quiet time because I don't know what sort of things are going to bubble up. But y'all, that's the whole point. That's the whole point. Because if you just stay in avoidance your whole life and you avoid with busyness and schedules and noise and noise and noise and news and your phone and everything, like, you're never going to be able to face the real things that you need to face. And so when I started walking every single day and actually taking intentional alone time, so many things shifted. It also shifts a lot of the chemicals in your brain, and that is like scientifically proven, and I'm going to get into that here in a minute when I go more into depth about walking. But so I feel like when I'm alone, I'm literally collecting data. I'm collecting data about the things in my life and areas of my life that I am like totally enjoying, that are totally lighting me up. I am noticing those things. But then when I get alone, I can also drown out the noise and get quiet and really dig deep and ask myself, is this part of my life draining me? And if the answer is yes, then what am I going to do moving forward to try to do less of the things that are draining me and more of the things that are lighting me up? But again, you will never know the answer to those questions unless you take the time to get quiet and you take the time to actually like sit and be by yourself. Okay, number 2. If you are feeling like you're in a funk, I think it's really, really important for you to stop numbing yourself. Our society right now is so addicted to numbing ourselves. And what I mean by that is numbing ourselves with our phone, numbing ourselves by scrolling, numbing ourselves with Netflix, numbing ourselves with fiction books. I actually had a friend recently tell me that she likes to read fiction books because it allows her an escape from her own reality and her own life because she doesn't love her life that much. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that is so sad. Also, I'm very embarrassed to say this, but if you've consumed my content for like the past 6 months, like if you are on my email list or even if you watch my Instagram stories, y'all, I don't know what it is, but I just want to say I know the difference between fiction and nonfiction, okay? I was in like AP English classes in high school. I know the freaking difference between fiction and nonfiction. I know that fiction is fake and nonfiction is, self-help books. Things that are real is nonfiction. Fiction is fake. Fiction starts with an F. Fake starts with an F. And so that's how I always remembered it in high school. But for some reason, anytime I talk about books and I talk about, my brain just wants to say nonfiction. I don't know why, but almost every time I talk about books, my brain spits out nonfiction. I say nonfiction. But I know the difference. And so I think I made the mistake of posting on my Instagram story a couple weeks ago. I was reading a book and it was a fiction book. And I put on there, best nonfiction book that I've read in a long time. And then I caught the mistake and I was like, what am I doing? I definitely know this is a fiction book. Anyways, once I realized that and I was also editing a podcast episode the other day that I recorded back in the fall, and I was talking about books and I flip-flopped it again. I got it mixed up again, but it's like, I know the difference. So anyways, that's just a little side note that I know the difference. I've always known the difference, but for whatever reason, my brain just always says nonfiction. Anyways, that's beside the point. All I'm saying is that a lot of times people are numbing themselves with more books. They're numbing themselves with more podcasts. They're numbing themselves with more shows, more Netflix. And to me, it is so sad because people are so afraid to actually look in the mirror and look at their life and face their life and actually ask themselves what's working, what's not working. And sometimes I can find myself doing it. Sometimes I can like see a to-do list or something that I need to do or something that I need to face or something that I need to fix, something that I need to do. And in the moment, I'll just be like, oh, let me click on this little Instagram app real quick and see what so-and-so is doing right now. And it's like the minute I click on that app, my eyes and my brain is taken to a whole nother world. And so then it's like my to-do list all of a sudden is not as important. And the things that I need to face in my life are all of a sudden, on the back burner because I've got this super addicting device in my hand that is telling me that so-and-so, Mary Ann's Facebook post about how the local restaurant is going downhill is like, that's all of a sudden way more important to me than what I actually have going on in my real life. So just also note that a lot of people numb themselves with busy schedules, okay? I know so many people who are overscheduled, overbooked, and with my kids being so little right now, I really try not to overbook us. I really try. I mean, again, my kids are 5, 2, and we have a baby, and I am not interested in getting on every single sports team right now. I'm really not. If it's something that he is very interested in and he really wants to play, and he shows an interest in it, and he shows that it's something he wants to, practice at and be good at, I'm not going to take that away from him. But at the same time, he's 5. I am not going to allow our lives to be so overscheduled that we don't even have time to breathe and to check in and drop in and notice how we're feeling. Because I feel like so many people, they literally do not have a moment in their week where they can breathe, where they can journal, where they can sit with themselves, because they are just hopping from one thing to the next, one thing to the next. And I know sometimes when you get in certain seasons of life, it's not something that you can control, and it's not something that you can really, it's not something that you can help. But the whole idea is just noticing. Notice when you are numbing yourself with a schedule. Notice when you are numbing yourself with your phone. Notice when you're numbing yourself with, how many ever Netflix shows that you're watching at nighttime. Just notice these things. That's the whole idea, and that's the whole point. Okay, number 3 is to start walking. Now, I know I already mentioned this, but I am such a proponent for walking. I mean, again, it helped me get out of one of the weirdest seasons of my life 2 years ago. And I got to a point where I could not go a day without walking. I couldn't go a day without lacing up my tennis shoes and getting out there and moving my body. And it is crazy how it just rewires your nervous system when you are walking. When you are walking, all day long, you will say, "Oh, I need to put my tennis shoes on. I need to actually get out there and walk. I need to do this. I need to do that." Your to-do list is just going in your head, and you feel guilty or whatever. But then once you finally get out there and you start moving your body, all of that weight slowly, and I'm not talking about pounds on your body, but I'm talking about all of the mental load just starts to melt away. I mean, truly, that's how I feel. I feel like it's a release when I walk. I feel like, every time my foot hits the pavement, I feel like I am releasing stagnant energy. And I know that there's some sort of, it's called something, but the consistent movement of both sides of your body. So it's literally called something, but I can't think of the name of it right now. But it is a way that you can regulate your nervous system. And so that's one reason that walking helps you so much, because you are moving your left side, then your right side, then your left side, then your right side. And it's that over and over and over, that repetitive motion of both sides of your body. And it helps increase your divergent thinking. So when you're walking, blood flow increases, and so you're getting more blood flow to your prefrontal cortex. All of this is related to divergent thinking. Divergent thinking is idea generation, okay? So that's why whenever you go for a walk and you aren't scrolling and you aren't watching TV and, you don't have all of these distractions in place, that's why so many people come up with wonderful ideas when they're walking, because it increases their divergent thinking, which is the part of your brain that is responsible for idea generation. So all of this is just so interesting to me, because I've always been one of those people who said oh, I need to go to the gym, or I need to go on a run. And I used to be a big runner. Until it got really hard on my hips and my knees. I never really understood the science behind it, but truly, walking, it lowers your cortisol. It increases divergent thinking. It increases blood flow. It makes your body feel safe. And so that's why, you might put off walking all day, but then the minute that you get out there, and especially if you walk outside, the minute you get out there and you start moving your body, it's truly all of that melts away. And that's how I feel. And also, when I'm walking, I'm alone for the most part. I mean, sometimes I take a stroller, but for the most part, when I'm walking, I am alone. So it allows me, all of this is kind of working together and playing together, right? So I'm getting my alone time in. I am trying to get better about walking in silence and walking without a podcast, walking without something in my ears. I'm trying to get better about walking just by myself and alone and in silence so that I can listen to my ideas and listen to my thoughts and just breathe. Honestly, just breathe. It gives you space. And that is so much of what we are lacking in today's society is space. So, okay, we've already gone over alone time. You need to stop numbing and start walking. Okay, now we are on to number 4. And again, all of these are sort of tying together. Number 4 is consume constructive media. Now, I have said that we need to stop numbing, right? I feel like everything in moderation, right? I am a huge podcast girl. I love to listen to podcasts. Have honestly taken the place of reading a lot in my life and music a lot in my life, which makes me kind of sad. I feel like I need to kind of take a step back on the podcast a little bit. But that is something that I need to be working on, is not just constantly turning on a show. Not constantly turning on a podcast, but I feel like listening to uplifting shows, it has rewired my brain. I truly believe that, because everything that I listen to is extremely positive, uplifting, encouraging. I could list off all the people that I listen to and all the shows that I listen to. I kind of keep like 5-6 shows in rotation throughout my week. But I used to listen to Crime Junkie, and I used to listen to like all these murder podcasts, Up and Vanished. Honestly, the first time I ever even listened to a podcast was back in 2016 or 2015, whenever I think Serial was like the very first podcast that people ever even listened to, but it was a murder, it was all about this murder. So when I say consume constructive media, murder podcasts don't count, okay? Now, I know that all of that stuff is very interesting, and I know that it is so intriguing, and we want to know every last detail of who murdered who and why, Kelly from the University of South Carolina got murdered on her way home from the bar on Thursday night. Like, I know that we all want to know all the details. Even I want to know the details, okay? But again, we just need to be aware of how it's making you feel, aware that it is increasing your anxiety. You need to be aware that it is increasing your feelings of urgency and your feelings of the baby's waking up. 1 second. Here he is. Here's this baby. Looking at puppy. What we're looking at. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see my little baby. He's gotten so chunky. Okay, I had to get him situated nursing, but back to my soapbox about murder podcasts. So they make you feel unsafe, obviously. They increase your cortisol. They are just honestly not good for you. I know they're interesting. I know they're intriguing, but it's not good for you. I went through a time whenever I was pregnant with my first son where all I did was listen to 2 shows during that time period. One of them was called the Pregnancy Podcast, and it was one of those shows that like every single episode was explaining what was being formed in your baby during that week of gestation, and the things to avoid, the things not to do. And it was honestly the most anxiety inducing show that I could have ever listened to during my first trimester of my first pregnancy. And it was either called the Pregnancy Podcast or it was called 40 Weeks. I don't know. But either way, the girl's name was Vanessa. And like, I think if I were to hear Vanessa's voice right now, it would send my body in, I would have like a visceral reaction, and I like might have a panic attack, because just listening to all the things that she shared, it was so scary, because I had never been pregnant before, and everything that she talked about, it just taught me of all the things that could go wrong during a pregnancy, and I really regret listening to it. So if you're pregnant or newly pregnant or trying to get pregnant, I'm not bashing this gal. Like, she was out there, teaching people about the things to do and not do when you're pregnant. But if you are sort of an anxious person, kind of like I am, that is not something that you just need to have in your ear holes every single week. So anyway, when I was pregnant with my first baby, I listened to that show, and then I also listened to Crime Junkie every week. And probably sometime during my second trimester, I just had like a complete crash out, because It's a really long story, really actually long, funny story that I'm not even going to get into right now. But we were on a trip and my husband didn't answer his phone for an extended period of time. And I went into a horrible, horrible spiral. And it all stemmed back to the fact that I was listening to murder podcasts. And I just immediately thought that he was somewhere on the side of the road being mutilated. And I'm sorry, but that is just not what you need to be filling your ears with and filling your mind with. I always say, like, you are what you listen to. And so if you want to be a highly anxious person, then yeah, you can continue to listen to your murder shows. Yeah, you can continue to do that. That's fine. But again, a lot of times people are listening to stuff like that because they are numbing themselves and they don't want to face their own issues and they don't want to face their own problems in their own life. So they just, fill all of their extra time with listening to stuff like that. So that's enough on that topic. But I will say something that you can listen to instead is a positive, uplifting podcast. But I have started listening to, it's called the Activations app. It used to be called something else, but the girl's name is Mimi Bouchard, and she is literal genius. She basically created this app. It's not a meditation. It's called an activation because it sort of motivates you. It's not sitting quiet, sitting silent. It is more of an audio experience that encourages you to take steps in your life. And she has all sorts of different topics that that you can choose. Whenever you download the app, she has different topics that you can choose. So let's say that you have a big presentation at work or whatever, she has an activation that you can listen to before going to do that. Let's say this is one that I have had to do a couple times, but she has one for if you're about to go be around a bunch of family members for holiday or whatever, you can listen to an activation before you go do that. And it will just sort of remind you, you are in control of your actions. You are in control of how you react to things. If someone says something to you that is unkind or someone says something to you that is hurtful, it's just a reflection of them. It's not a reflection of you. It's such an amazing app. And I just love how she has different categories and different topics for all sorts of things that you might experience throughout your life. So Mimi actually developed this app because she needed, whenever she was sort of starting her business and becoming an entrepreneur, she needed something every day that would encourage her and that would light her up and, set a fire underneath her booty. And so she started recording just in the voice memo, on her phone. She started recording herself talking to herself, telling herself that she is smart, she is a motivated person, she is the type of person who makes good decisions, all this stuff. And so it eventually turned into an app, and it's called the Activations app, and I am a huge fan. I am not affiliated in any way, so I don't get paid to talk about this. This is genuinely just something that I am obsessed with. And this summer, so again, all these things are related that I'm talking about. This summer, I started walking even more so than I was because I was pregnant. So sometimes I would walk once in the morning and once in the evening, and I would listen to one of these activations while I was walking. I also like to listen to the Activations app while I'm in the shower. Those are kind of my two favorite times to listen to them. Will actually makes so much fun of me. We had a party at our house the other night, and he was just telling my friends about this app, and just the way that he imitated the app was absolutely hilarious. It's amazing. It's amazing. I can't say enough wonderful things about it. It's called Activations. Mimi Bouchard is the founder, and I actually have her book. I need to start reading it. But anyways, she's all about channeling your higher self and just being the best possible version of yourself. So again, number 4 is consume constructive media. Out with the murder podcast, in with the activations. Let's freaking go. Okay. Number 5 is stop scrolling. So again, all of these things are so related to each other. So this summer when I was pregnant, I have really, really, really bad pregnancy insomnia. I have with all 3 boys. You know, if you have never experienced pregnancy insomnia, it's kind of like when you wake up at, 2:00 in the morning and you cannot go back to sleep because you just have thought after thought after thought after thought of like things that you need to do, things that you're worried about. Is the baby kicking? How am I going to afford this once the baby gets here? I mean, it is just constant. And so with my first 2 pregnancies, very much every time I would wake up in the middle of the night, I would just roll over and grab my phone and, online shop or scroll or whatever. And when I was pregnant with Hutch, who is our 3rd baby, I just kind of told myself, I'm done with that. I'm not going to do that anymore. So every night before bed, I had this little desk outside of our bed or outside of the bedroom, and I will just plug up my phone outside and set it on that desk and then go into the bedroom, go to sleep. And then, when I was pregnant, every single night around 1 or 2, I would have to wake up to use the restroom. And on the way to the bathroom, I would just like tap the phone to see what time it was. But then, whereas my old self would have picked up the phone and started doing whatever, and like my brain would have been turned on, then instead of doing that, I just tapped the phone to see what time it was, and then I would go pee, and then I would go back to bed. And I feel like my screen time was down by hours and hours and hours. It is so helpful. And there's so many like devices out there right now that you can buy. Like there's something called a brick. I don't have this thing, but it's a brick. It's something that you can put your phone on and it monitors your screen time. And there's also something called like an RO box or something like that. Again, I have not purchased either one of these things. I tell Will all the time that we are probably going to purchase one of them because I'm a stickler about screen time during like dinner. I'm like, we can at least have dinner with each other without looking at our phone. And, Will, his screen time or screen consumption and habits, that they're very different from mine, because like when he's at work, he's so busy at work all the time and he's always doing like physical stuff at work. He doesn't really have time to look at his phone. So when he comes home, that's sort of his decompress, wind down. I'm going to look at my phone time, and I'm like, no, like that's your family time, So again, all of this is just being aware, becoming aware of things you need to do more of, things you need to do less of. But truly, our phones and the screen time, it's rewiring our brain, but not in a good way. So something that I've started to notice a lot more about social media is when we open our phones and we go to the Instagram app or TikTok app or whatever, there has never been a time in history where we can open something like that and our brain sees content that makes us feel a certain type of way. You can feel a range of emotions within a 30-second time period, right? Like you can open your app and you can see something that tells you that you need to be feeding your baby these type of solids. And then the next thing you see is you might possibly see someone get killed on your screen. That happened to us, a couple months ago. And then you go to the next video and you might see something about how you need to be a millionaire and you can make $1 million from home while you're a stay-at-home mom. And then the next video is talking about how you need to homeschool your children and how putting them in public school is doing this and that to their brains. And then the next video, and again, like maybe this is just my algorithm, but then the next video is like showing you how to make a craft. And it's like, as you can see, our brains are not made to feel those range of emotions in such a short period of time, right? So like we open our phones and we're inundated with all sorts of things that make us feel all types of ways, right? And it's not normal, it's not biological. And so I just try to tell myself that and, limit my doom scrolling. Also, I'm very good at noticing when I start to doom scroll. I also say that if you are a business owner or you are someone who uses social media for your business, and 100% believer that you need to be creating content more than you consume content. A lot of people get stuck in this, the excuse of, oh, I'm just using my phone to watch social media so that I can get inspiration for the content to create. And it's like, no, you already have so many ideas in your head of the content that you want to create. So you just need to spend your time creating that content instead of consuming more content. And again, I'm not perfect. I am not saying that I am just so good at this, because I'm not, but it's just being aware of how much time you spend on your phone and how much time you spend scrolling. I read something the other day that said, like, most of the time we grab our phones. Hang on one second. I read something the other day that said we grab our phones when we want to take a break or take a rest. Like, we often grab our phones when we want to rest. But when you grab your phone and you open an app, a lot of times it does the opposite. A lot of times your brain, instead of resting, it actually goes into fight or flight. And it actually sees a reel that makes you feel extremely urgent and anxious. So while we think we're laying down to take a quote unquote break, to doom scroll, what we're actually doing is making our brains feel extremely unsafe. So again, I guess Hutch is going to be sitting with us through the rest of this episode, but that's okay, because that's real life, and that's just how we're going to roll with this today. Okay, number 6. So we're on to number 6. We have 12 of these, so I'm going to get through the rest of these. Number 6 is romanticize little moments. So something that I like to do to romanticize little moments is when I take a shower, I like to clean up the bathroom. So not clean, but like I like to tidy up the bathroom. I like to pick up all the dirty clothes. I like to pick up the shoes, put them in the closet, and I like to light a candle. And then I like to turn on my activations app and get in my shower. And also, if Will's home, I'll say like, hey, be sure that you're watching the kids and like no one comes in here and bothers me during my shower. Now, if you are a stay-at-home mom and if you don't have a husband at home to help you, if you don't have someone to help you, I understand that you are living a completely different reality than I am, and it's totally understandable for you to jump in the shower and you have to have an ear to listen to make sure all your children are not like running around outside and getting hit by a car. I also completely understand that side of it. But when you can, I think it's really important to try to romanticize little moments. So one way that I romanticize little moments is by getting in the shower, lighting a candle, turning on an activation, and just really being very present during my shower and just soaking in, all the good smells. I also love the way our shower looks. It's an extremely aesthetic shower because I designed it. And so, I think I've mentioned a shower like 15 times already on this episode, but showers are really important to me. Also, showers where I can shower alone, where I can clean my body alone is very important to me. But that doesn't mean that right now in this season of life, a lot of times I don't have a baby sitting in a baby Bajorn bouncer outside of the shower, but he loves to listen to the water. He loves to just sit there. So, a lot of times I know if I need a break, I can just pop him in his little bouncer and hop in the shower, and it's good for me and it's good for him. So another example of a way that I like to romanticize my life is sometimes I like to make a latte at home. I like to actually take the time to make a latte at home. I put cinnamon on top of it, and it's like, if you've never done this before, I want you to start doing it. When you take the first sip of your coffee, I do this every morning. I try to do this every single morning. When I take the first sip of my coffee, I just like to truly like close my eyes and I feel the heat touch my lips and I just really notice how it feels. I savor it and I feel it going down my body. And also I will say just a little, he just burped. I will say just a little like prayer of thanksgiving, and I'll say, God, thank you so much for this life. Thank you so much for this warm coffee right now. Thank you for my children who are playing beside me. I just try to use the first sip of coffee as a moment to just drop in and notice my surroundings and be thankful for the life that I have, and thankful that I have hot coffee, and be thankful that I have children that I can listen to, and just really look around and just say, wow, like this is a really beautiful life that we've created. But I always use that first sip of coffee to sort of remind my brain to do that. So another way that I like to romanticize my life is every time I make a water, I don't just make a water, okay? Like, I like to put lemon in it. I like to put ginger in it. I also am obsessed with electrolyte packets. Sometimes I'll make one with an electrolyte packet. And, it's like little tiny things in your life that you do every day regardless. Why not just like up the ante and make it a little bit special? So something that me and Will highly disagree on is the dishes. So I like to eat my meals on nice dishes, cute dishes, aesthetically pleasing dishes. Will is like, nah, we're plopping this meal right here on this paper plate because in our family, he's the one who does the dishes and I'm the one who does the laundry. That's a whole other story. I feel like that's a whole other podcast episode because me and Will, I feel like we've done a pretty good job of divvying up chores and tasks. And, several years ago, we just made the decision that he is in charge of dishes, period, full stop. I'm in charge of laundry, period, full stop. So that way we're not like always, shooting the passive aggressive comment to each other saying, oh, I see them dishes haven't been done in a few days, or I see the laundry ain't been touched. And it's like, we know our job and we know what we are in charge of. But anyways, that's why he likes for me to eat on paper plates because it's less dishes for him. But I think it's important that like on a random Tuesday night, I think it's important that we eat our tacos on, the nice plates. I'm a firm believer of, you only live once, you could die tomorrow. Do you want your last meal to be on paper plates or do you want it to be on the nice plates? You know what I'm saying? So anyways, just romanticizing little, tiny, mundane parts of your life because again, you only live once. Okay, number 7 is start journaling. I know so many of you are probably rolling your eyes hearing me talk about this because I talk about journaling so much. I really do. I talk about journaling so much. And it's because I've been journaling for 15 plus years and I don't think I would literally be half the human that I am today if it was not for journaling. So there's 2 or 3, a lot of times people say I don't know what to journal about. So there's 2 or 3 things or, models that you could try. So I don't know if you're familiar with The Artist Way, but there is a book called The Artist Way and it's by Julia Cameron. She wrote it years and years ago. It's sold probably millions of copies. I mean, truly, I think it has. And I think every artist that I know has read it and implemented parts of her course. So The Artist Way is technically like a 12-week course. But it's in book form. And so you can kind of go through it self-paced or whatever. And one thing that Julia Cameron writes about is the morning pages. So morning pages is basically where you take a blank journal and you write for 3 pages straight, stream of consciousness. You try not to pick up your pen. Like whatever comes to your mind, you write it on the paper and you do that for 3 pages. And the whole idea is that you do this for a month or 2 months or 3 months. A lot of what is like building up inside of you and a lot of what is brewing inside of you will have a release and it'll have a way to come out. And once you get it on the page, it's like it's birthed into the world, and then you figure out that if it's still a problem or not, or if it's something that you want to act on or not, or if it's something that you want to build on or not. And so like the whole psychology behind it is just getting it out onto the page, and then a month or so after you've been doing morning pages, you can look back and look for patterns, you can look for even if you've written the same thing 15 times and it's not something that you want to focus on anymore. It helps you just really be super conscious about what you're spending your thoughts on and what you're spending your time on and your energy on. And so I'm a big proponent for the morning pages, but they're very hard to do. I will say disciplining yourself to do the morning pages is very difficult. And so if you haven't read The Artist Way by Julia Cameron, I highly recommend it. But if you haven't tried the morning pages, I also highly recommend it. But you have to be super disciplined to do it every day. And then also, I am not, just going to preach on this a whole lot. This is sort of a shameless plug, but I created a journal guide in 2020, so 5 years ago, and it's basically 7 prompts, and I created this completely by myself. In 2020, I was just in as we all were. as we all were. Was anybody mentally sane during 2020? Probably the answer is no. So during 2020, I created this bless yous. So I just wrote down 7 little prompts on a blank sheet of paper in a blank journal. And it's 7 things that I like to answer every single day. And I truly, like, I genuinely try to do this every single day because I feel like it has shaped me. It's shaped my business. It's shaped everything that I've created because it forces me to get really quiet with myself and answer hard questions like what's draining you and what's lighting you up. And if you've listened to the last episode, you know that I ended up shutting down my storefront, which, you know, I thought for so long was my end goal. I thought for so long that owning a storefront was like the end all be all. I thought that that was, you know, I had reached my pinnacle, right? But then after doing my journal guide every day for a year almost and answering, you know, what's lighting you up, what's draining you, I got to a point where I was like, wait, this store is draining me and sucking the life out of me. And I didn't know that until I wouldn't have known that, I don't think, if I wouldn't have been intentional with my journaling. So anyways, buy the journal guide. It's literally a couple bucks, and I feel like it will help shape your future in a really positive way. It's something that I created and I'm really proud of, and I still do it almost every single day. So anyway, start journaling. And then again, if you don't want to do morning pages, if you don't want to do my journal guide, you can form your own practice. You can form your own journal practice. In general, it's so helpful in shaping you and helping you become a better person. It helps me start my day with the right foot forward. It helps me set intention. I am an extremely scattered and ADHD type of person, but I can tell on the days where I have filled out my journal template and the days that I haven't, because the days that I haven't, I am so all over the place. Like, my to-do list is very squirrely. I don't know what's important. I don't know what the priority is. But then the minute I answer my questions on my little journal guide that I created, I'm like, oh, okay, clear. I know exactly what my plan is for today. I know what the priorities are. I know what's important and what's not important. And again, so many people say, Paige, like, you're so good at just doing the damn thing. You're so good at going after something that you want and you know, boots on the ground, getting it done. And I'm like, yeah. But if I didn't have a sheet of paper to make a freaking list and say, you know, if you want to get here, if you want to get to point B, you got to do point A first. This is the step that you have to focus on today if you want to reach that goal. And so that is what I use my journaling for. So journaling is not just sitting down writing like, this is what I did today. Woke up, made breakfast, you know, took the kids to No, that's not what journaling is for me. And I've had a lot of people tell me I don't know what to journal about. So I just gave you several ideas. You can write stream of consciousness for 3 pages. You can use my journal template, or you could even write letters to your children. That's I've heard of people writing letters and notes to their children for 18 years. That's really freaking cool. And to me, that's journaling. You know what I mean? So anyway, number 8, we are going to go on to number 8. So number 8, leaning into spirituality. This is so important. I feel like it speaks for itself. I don't really have to go into why leaning into spirituality is important. Leaning into a higher power, looking to a higher power. Again, I do not know what you believe. I am not here to pressure you to believe any type of way, any type of thing. But for me, I like to read my Bible. I like to do devotionals. I like to pray. I like to read spiritual books, spiritual texts. I also like to have conversations with really trusted friends that I know are versed in this realm and in this area. And I like to have conversations with them and ask really hard questions. I mentioned this in one of the first episodes, but I am a person who I have a lot of questions and I doubt things a lot. And so I read one time that it's important for, if you're a Christian or whatever you believe, to let your doubt drive you deeper. So if you have a doubt about something, Find books that will answer those questions for you. Find people that you can ask those questions to, and they will give you verses to look at, or they will give you text to read. They will give you things that will help answer your questions. Don't just sit in doubt for years and years and years and say, well, I don't really know what I believe, so I just don't practice anything because I don't really know what I believe. Or, I was kind of burned in the church whenever I was little, so I just don't know what I believe. Okay, well then I think that it's time that you do a little digging and you try to find a little evidence here and there for what you believe. And to me, I would not be able to function if I didn't have a higher power and like a purpose behind what I do. And I'm going to get into that a little bit when I get to number 11. But number 8 is leaning into your spirituality. If you don't know what that looks like, DM me and we can talk about it a little bit more. I'll give you books that I've read. I'm not just going to shove a bunch of books about Christianity down your throat, because I've read all sorts of books and all sorts of texts that really help open my eyes and help point me toward a higher power and toward a God, or toward, whatever it is that you believe in or whatever it is you don't believe in. I just think it's so important to find a higher power to look toward and to pray toward. I pray all the time, and I feel like some days I pray more than others, but just having something to drop into when times get tough. I again don't know how I would survive. Don't know how I'd survive without it. Okay, moving on to number 9 is changing your environment. So if you want to get out of a funk, change your freaking environment. Don't get stuck living life on autopilot, doing the same thing you did today, doing the same thing you did yesterday today just because it's what you did yesterday. Do not get stuck doing that. It is like my biggest pet peeve when I see people hating their lives, feeling like, I hate my job, I hate my body, I hate this, I hate that, I hate our daycare. Me and my husband aren't doing well, blah, 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 but then they don't do anything to change it. They just wake up and they do the exact same thing that day as they did the day before, expecting change, and that's never going to happen. You're never going to get change unless you change something. So for me, getting out of my current environment is so important, and changing your current environment is so important. And that can be anything as little as like cleaning up the kitchen, wiping down the counter, and having a whole new kitchen reset. That can help your brain. That can help you get focused. That can help you feel creative. That can help you feel clear. But also, if you need to go take a trip for 2 days, 3 days by yourself, go do that. Go do that. It's a mental reset. And if you do something like that, where you decide to go take a trip by yourself, 9 times out of 10, you're going to come back a much better person than you were before you left. You're going to come back with more clarity. You're going to come back rested. You're going to come back so energized. And so, I'm actually going to do a full episode at some point on my solo trip that I took this past year, because I feel like it triggered a lot of women. It triggered a lot of women who don't give themselves the permission to spend time by themselves, whether that be go to dinner by yourself or take a trip by yourself. There's a lot of women who do not give themselves the time and the space to be a better person. And I mean, truly. So anyway, I'm getting a little squirrely here, but changing your environment is so important. Okay. Another example of that is during my postpartum experience this time, I had never ever allowed myself a break at the store. I had never allowed myself time away from the store for long enough for me to ask questions like, do I even enjoy this anymore? Is this something that's even working for me anymore? When I actually gave myself time and allowed myself a maternity leave, it just really made me realize that the routines that I had gotten in and the waking up and doing the same thing every day, it wasn't serving me anymore. But I wouldn't have known that if I wouldn't have given myself a little time and giving myself some rest. And I wouldn't have known that if I would have just continued to live life on autopilot. And so, I made a huge decision to close my storefront because of I had a realization during my maternity leave, and that's all due to changing my environment, right? During my maternity leave, I pretty much didn't work up at the store for about 2 months because, I wanted to be home with Hutch, and I wanted to be able to nurse him when I wanted and nap with him when I wanted and rest and decorate my house for Christmas and just do things that were lighting me up and do things that energized me. And once I got out of my everyday routine, I realized, you know what? That routine ain't working for me anymore. And so I'm pivoting and I'm changing and I'm allowing myself to do that. So yeah, getting yourself out of your everyday environment could be, or changing your environment could be anything from cleaning up your kitchen, cleaning up your workspace, clearing it up, changing out a couch, getting some new throw pillows, anything to make you see life a little bit differently, whether that be changing your decor, cleaning up your kitchen, going on a trip. I live in a small town, and I feel like in order to see the bigger picture of life, sometimes I have to get out of here. I have to get out of here. I have to take a break. I have to leave 38344, and I have to see different places in order for me to truly grasp like the bigger meaning of life. Because I feel like if we get so niche down and so in our hole and so in our, used to our everyday routine, it can be so easy to just get stuck there, stuck, and not grow and not push forward. And this is a whole kind of tangent, but you've probably seen that reel or that meme that says, if you are an 18-year-old or you're in high school, please leave your hometown at some point. Please move away. Please leave your hometown. And the reason that you need to do that is because it's all about changing your environment, because you'll learn so much, you will see so much more, you will see the world through a new lens, and it's all about growth, right? It's all about growing into a better person. So number 10 is finding a hobby. This can feel so daunting for people. And I know that because when I say find a hobby, I mean find something to do that you enjoy doing that is not necessarily lucrative. It's not something that's making you money. So most creative people, they'll find a hobby, but then the minute that they figure out that they like doing it, they try to make a business out of it. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm not telling you to find a hobby and then try to make a business out of it, because sometimes that will ruin the activity for you. And so right now, something that I am doing that I'm trying to turn into a hobby is like junk journaling or scrapbooking. It's not something, but obviously my brain wants to be like, oh, I could create a class around that, or I could, source materials to sell for junk journaling. It's like my brain immediately tries to make money out of it. But I'm not letting myself. I'm not allowing myself to do that. I'm strictly just trying to keep it a hobby for right now and just kind of see where it leads, because it's something that is lighting me up and it's something that makes me happy right now. And also I really just want to have like notebooks and photo albums that my kids can look back on once they're older, and not just look back at albums on Facebook, you know what I mean? So finding a hobby. And if you do not know how to find a hobby and you don't even know where to start, something that I tell people to do all the time is take out a journal and write down all the things that you like to do when you were a kid. Write down all the things that you like to do when you were a kid. Before the world told you who to be. Before the world told you that you were good at it or bad at it, whatever it was that, 6-year-old you like to do, write it down. And so for me, something that I loved to do as a child was just ride my bike. Like, your girl could stay on a bike for hours. I loved to ride my bike. Something else I liked to do when I was a child is I like to play like waitress. I like to like take a notebook and pretend I had a table that I was waiting on and serving and, bringing them waters. Like, that's something that I like to do as a child. Something else that I like to do was like make crafts. I loved to craft, loved a bucket full of just glue and glitter and string and construction paper and scissors. Like, give me a box like that and I would be entertained for the rest of the day. Something else I like to do as a kid was like be on the water. I love to like be on a jet ski or sea-doo or the boat, or I loved to swim. I love to be in the water. So again, like find a hobby, find something that you love to do that's not necessarily making you money, and just go try that. Just go play. I mean, it doesn't have to be serious. You don't have to be good at it. Just go do it. Go play and go try and see where it leads you. It might turn into a business, it might not, and that's okay. But, the whole idea is just finding something that makes you happy and something that you can retreat to, at the end of a long day, or if you have a couple hours on a Sunday afternoon. And honestly, like with your hobbies, pull your kids into it. Pull your kids into it. Right now, with my junk journaling stuff, I've let the kids kind of like cut some paper here and there, pick out the pictures that are going to go on the pages, and I may end up like actually buying them their own little notebooks to make their own junk journals. Sorry, I'm nursing right now if you hear some little suckling noises. But anyways, find a hobby. And if you do not know what that hobby could be, write down all the things that you like to do when you were a child and just go try out one of those things. Number 11, we are on to number 11. Help others. If you are in a funk and you feel down and you feel sad, find someone to go help. And if you don't know how to do that, if you literally don't know how to do that, something that we like to do, and this is something that me and Will did a couple Christmases ago. I think we did this the first Christmas we were engaged. And then we took several years off doing this because I got so busy with the store, and I'll get into that in a second. But we ended up doing it again this Christmas with our kids, and it like made me feel wonderful. It made me feel great. And that was, we made poppy seed chicken casserole and like green beans and a dessert and rolls, and we took them to families in our town that don't have a lot, and they are more than likely living on food stamps, and a lot of these families have a lot of kids that they have to feed, and they just don't have the money to craft meals like that, and every night. And so a couple Christmases ago we did this, and it was one of my favorite memories of me and Will. Like it was on a night where I want to say it was like Christmas Eve. And we spent all day making all these casseroles, getting all this food together. And then we delivered them to a town. It was actually a town where I was a speech therapist in that town at the time, but it's a very, low SES. Like there's a lot of families in that town that are like low income. And so we just delivered these casseroles, and it was so heartwarming. And then after we delivered the casseroles, we went to a winery and we had a couple glasses of wine. And then we went to my family's, like, I don't know, it was just like a Christmas, like a gift exchange type deal with my family. But anyways, it was just one of like the best memories that I have with Will. And I've been wanting to incorporate that somehow and teach our kids that, this is important. This is something that you can do not just around the holidays, but any time of the year. And so we did it this year. We spent all day making poppy seed chicken casserole, green beans, and then we also got a bunch of like gifts for the kids that we delivered to. So the way that I found out who to deliver the casseroles to is I reached out to the school counselor, and like obviously our school counselor knows most of the families in the school system. And so she gave me the names of families that would really appreciate this. They wouldn't be like offended or like embarrassed. Also B, the names of families who had a lot of kids. C, families that, were available and it would be safe for me to drop off food. And so we did that, I want to say like a week or so before Christmas. And it just like, we taught our kids the importance of it. Because I am also a firm believer that like when you do something for someone, you don't need to do it for show. You don't need to do it so that you can make a social media post about it. Like I didn't post about that when we did that day. It was so beautiful and fun, but I didn't want to post about it and honestly, I feel kind of weird talking about it right now, but the whole reason I'm talking about it right now is because I want to encourage you to do the same thing, or to find something in your community that, is serving other people. I don't know if we have one in our town, but a lot of like bigger cities have like soup kitchens. my friend Annalise and I, when we were in college, we used to volunteer at this like homeless shelter soup kitchen situation. And I started doing it. And then I started inviting Annalise to do it with me. We would do it on Saturday mornings. And then like we would just feel so good because it's like you're not just helping them. And because you are helping the person that you're serving in a huge way, but you're not just helping them, you're also like softening your heart and, reminding you of what's important and reminding you of like, you have it really good and you are very blessed and you should be very grateful for all the things that you have. But then, also when you do things like that, it makes you want to do it again. It makes you want to go home and cook 8 more casseroles to deliver to 8 more families, and it's like when you pour into other people, it might encourage them to go pour into someone else, so it's like it's just a domino effect. And also, if you are in a sad place or in a funky spot, go serve someone else. I promise you it will make your day so much better, so much better. And I just wanted to touch on the fact that, when I had my storefront, I was so overly busy all the time, and it did not leave space or time in my schedule to do things like this. So this is, exhibit 947, why you should not be cramming your schedule with all the things that, there is no one that you are serving by having an overly crammed schedule. You're not serving anyone. You're not serving anyone by, being the board of this or being the president of that or having your kids sign up for 19 sports. Like, you are absolutely serving no one because you're really just depleting yourself and you're making less and less time for things like this. Cooking casseroles for people. And so I really realized, again, like that was one way that the store was holding me back, was I didn't have any time to pour into other people because I was so busy pouring into my storefront that this, like, I think I told you guys on the last episode that I am a Enneagram 2, so I'm a helper, but I'm also an achiever. So like I like to help people, but I also like to achieve things. Sorry, baby's nursing. But I kind of lost that part of myself, the whole service-hearted part of myself. I don't want to say I lost it, but I wasn't harnessing it very much in the past few years because I was so busy and because I was spread so thin and because I just was running in a million directions all the time, trying to keep the store in tip-top shape. And another reason why I am very glad that I had the courage to change course when I knew it was time to change course. Okay, number 12. This is the last one I'm going to talk about. This is the last thing that I like to do if I am feeling like I'm in a funk. So, last one, keep your circle tight. We're talking about friendships here. We can even dive into family a little bit if you want to, but keep your circle tight, not wide. So I feel like there is this belief that like the more friends you have, and it's a false belief, that like the more friends you have, the more popular you are, that, you must be just like a really cool, amazing, good person if you have all these friends. Well, the older I get and the more wise, I guess, the more seasoned I become, I learn that we are not made to just have like a million friends. We're just not. And honestly, if you have a million friends, you're probably being extremely fake to half of them. And so, in my older age, I've definitely figured out, like who my best friends are and why they're my best friends. And so I very much I pour into the people who show up for me. I pour into the people who support me. I pour into the people who I trust and who I feel good around. Those people that you get around and you're just like, man, I just really don't feel good around this person. Their energy is off. Their energy makes me feel unsafe. I mean, there's people like that out there, and we all have those people. And so I have gotten to a place where I know who my friends are. And I'm very adamant about keeping those friendships up. So, I'm not really the type of person who likes to call people all the time. I'm not a big phone talker. I like to text, or I don't like to text. I like to voice text or I like to Snapchat. That's how I like to keep up with people. And so, I have a friend and she lives in Nashville and I care about her friendship so much, but she's a phone talker, like she wants to do a catch up phone call and that's just not my vibe. And so, here recently I have tried to like voice message her more because she is a good person and she is someone that I love dearly and she is someone that I don't want to lose contact with. She's one of my friends from college and but it's like finding the mode of communication that works best for you and your friends that you care the most about. That's like a challenge that I have faced, as we get older and as we have kids and as we all have our own, different priorities with work and being a wife. And like sometimes it can just be so hard to stay in contact with people. But it is nice to know, like, are you a type of person who wants to stay in contact via phone call? Do you want to do voice text? Do you want to do, Snapchat? Like how do you want to stay in contact? But letting those people know who you actually really care about and who you actually really love and you want more of them in your life, it's worth it to like take the time to figure out the best way that you both communicate with each other. But they say that you're this, or, I feel like I've read a quote in a million places that says you are the sum of the 5 people that you hang around. And I fully, fully believe that. If you are surrounding yourself with people who are negative, if you're surrounding yourself with people who are gossiping all the time and talking about other people all the time, then you're going to become the type of person who gossips and talks about people and, gives off bad vibes and low energy. Like that's not the type of person that you want to be. So therefore, that's not the type of person that you need to be surrounding yourself with. It is definitely a hard lesson to learn. It's a hard lesson to learn because at some point in your 30s, you're going to have to sort of start to weed out. Because, when you're in your 20s, you kind of have a lot of friends and you've met a lot of people through high school, through college, through grad school, through extracurricular activities. You just meet a lot and you come across a lot of people. And so in your 30s, I feel like, some of those relationships will carry on into your 30s. But then I also think that sometime, and it might happen earlier for you, but at some point you start to realize, oh, this is a relationship that is draining and this is a relationship that is not healthy. This is a relationship that's toxic. So why do I continue to pour myself into those people? And it's okay. Like, I just want to reiterate that it's okay. There's nothing wrong with you if you get to a place where you say, this relationship is not working for me anymore. I mean, we are not meant to just be for everyone. Like my personality is not for everyone. And so your personality is not for everyone. Every single person carries a different vibration. Every single person carries a different energy. And, not every energy is going to work. And not every vibration is going to work when it's put with a different vibration. Same thing with animals. Like not all animals are meant to be friends. And it's the same thing with humans. Like not all humans are meant to be friends, and that's okay. Again, I feel like I could do an entire episode on this, but it's like, just because you get to a place where you realize, hey, maybe me and this person, our personalities don't necessarily work together, it doesn't really mean that like you're in the wrong and they're in the right. Or it doesn't mean that they're in the right and you're in the wrong. It just means that you have different personalities, and like your strengths may not match their strengths. Your weaknesses may not match their weaknesses. I always tell people all the time, like me and my husband work so well together because we're so different. Like I could never be married to somebody who is the exact same as me. I could never. I mean, like if you know me at all, you know that I'm scattered, I'm creative, that numbers are not my thing, that I am like a fierce lover, like I love my people who are in my circle so hard, that I prioritize creativity, I prioritize alone time, I prioritize my kids, but like not everybody is like that. Not everybody prioritizes creativity. And so sometimes if I get matched up with somebody who doesn't think creativity is important, they don't think that autonomy and like making decisions for your life and your job and your future, like when I come up against people who just feel so stuck and they feel so victim mentality and they feel so woe is me, I don't fare well. I don't fare well because my personality is just different from theirs. And that's okay. It's okay. God made us all different for a reason, right? So, anyway, keep your circle tight. You don't have to have a million friends. If you have a million friends, okay, that's cool. But I would dare to ask myself, like, how deep are you going with each of your friends? How real are you with each of your friends? I would encourage you to hang out with the people who make you feel safe. I would encourage you to hang out with the people that make you feel loved. And I just, the rest, you can keep them at an arm's length and you can, still maintain a relationship with them, but not try to foster the relationship, if that makes sense. There's a way to go about this in a very mature adult way, not a mean girl high school drama type of way. But yeah, just protect your circle. Okay, so just to rehash, we're going to go over the 12 ways, the 12 things that I like to do when I feel myself slipping into a funk. It is January. A lot of people might be slipping into a funk right now. So also I want to encourage you, you don't have to do all these things. You don't have to do all these things. Just try one. Just pick one. Pick one and see how it makes you feel. Pick one, try it for a week and see how it makes you feel. So the first one is alone time. Prioritize your alone time. Number 2 is stop numbing. Stop numbing yourself with Netflix and fiction books and scrolling. Just stop numbing yourself. Be cognizant of how you spend your time and where your energy is placed. Okay, number 3, start walking. Period. Full stop. Start walking. Like, I don't even want to hear the first excuse. I don't want to hear that you don't feel safe. I don't know, figure out something, but go for a walk. Go for a walk. Buy a treadmill. Like, do not give me an excuse for why you can't walk, okay? I don't want to hear it. All right, number 4, consume constructive media. We're not going to be all about the murder podcast. We're not going to be consuming content that gives us anxiety. We are going to be listening to content that is constructive, whether that be a podcast, whether it be an activation, whether it be a self-help book, any of the above. Number 5 is stop scrolling. Plug your freaking phone up outside the bedroom at nighttime. Stop scrolling. Stop doom scrolling and start to notice when you are doom scrolling. Just notice it. Oh, I'm doom scrolling. Maybe I should go create content right now instead of consuming it. Number 6 is romanticize the little moments. Right now, I have a candle lit right in front of me. I kind of picked up this space before I started recording this podcast so that I felt clear and creative and just clear of clutter, okay? Romanticize the little moments. Number 7 is start journaling. You can journal stream of consciousness style. You can buy my journal guide. You can journal however you want to journal. Just start journaling. Get your thoughts out. Don't let them stay pent up in your body because it's stagnant energy, and stagnant energy will make you sick eventually. Okay, number 8 is lean into spirituality. I do not care where you go. I don't care what you do, but start asking questions, start digging deeper, lean into spirituality. Number 9 is change your environment. It doesn't matter if it's your kitchen counter. It doesn't matter if you go on a trip. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you want to take a week off of work just to clear your mind. Please do that. Just change your environment and see what opens up for you. Number 10 is find a hobby. If you don't know how to do this, write down all the things that you like to do when you were a child, whether that be riding your bike, getting on the lake, crafting, whatever. And then go do those things. Don't be afraid to play. Don't be afraid of quote unquote wasting time. You don't have to be productive 24/7. We're humans. Like, you don't have to be a machine, okay? We are a soul. We are a soul. We are not meant to be overproductive machines all the time. Number 11, go help others. Find a way to serve your community. If you do not know how to do that, ask your school counselor, ask someone in the church, get involved, go do something to help someone else. It could even just be baking cookies and delivering it to your neighbor. It doesn't have to be anything, outlandish. If you don't want to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, go make some cookies or a pie for your neighbor. Okay, and then number 12 is keep your circle tight, not wide. You are a sum of the 5 people that you hang around with. So please be cognizant of who you spend your time with. Spend your time with people who cheer for you. Spend your time with people who make you feel loved and who make you feel safe. Okay, so those are the 12 things that I like to do when I am feeling a little funky. I hope you have a wonderful week. I am so thankful that you're here listening to this podcast. If you feel led, please leave a review. It helps me so much. You can kind of type out something that you've been liking about the show. It would truly, truly mean the world to me. And if this episode helped you at all, please share it with a friend. Hutch says goodbye. We're gonna go change a diaper and go pick up the boys. Okay, love y'all. Bye.